Hello friends, today we will discuss about access specifiers and its types, as we already studied about methods in our last lecture. So here are the topics. What are access specifiers with types and methods of C#, how to integrate public, private and protected specifier, how to integrate internal protected, internal and private protected specifier, how to use these specifiers in different assemblies. So let's begin. So our first topic is access specifiers. So what is access specifier? Access specifier in C# are keywords that define the scope where you can access and visibility who can access of classes, methods, variables and other members in your code. So access specifier is that where we give the permission to that particular user to use that method or not. So here we can define that in our classes, method, variables, and if we want to give the accessibility level in the same class, in the same method, or in the different class or in the derived class. Suppose we have to give the permission to use that method into another project or another assembly. So these are the access specifier where we give the permission to the user to use that specific methods. Here we have some types of access specifiers like public, private, protected, internal and private protected. So here we have our first access specifier, that is public. So public members are accessible from anywhere inside the same class, other classes, other projects or assemblies. So public access specifier is that where we can access it through the another project or in the another assembly or in the same class or in the derived class, means it is available all over the project or in the another project also. So its accessibility level is very high, or we can easily access this public access modifier. Here we have the example where we create a class of my class and where we accessing this public class into our main method. Classes and objects we will discuss in our later videos. So let's see this example. Here we have to create some specific class. My class. Here we can create some variable. Okay, and we have to access this into our main method. For this we have to create the object of my class. And new my class. So we can use access it by my class dot value. We can display it into our console dot write line method. Access specifier. So here we can access this value. This is the public value. We can use it in the same class, in the same application or in the different application. So its accessibility is all over the project or in the different project also. So let's see what will be the output of this one. So here we have the output of public access specifier, that is the programmer. We are accessing this through the class and while creating the object of that particular class. So it is very easy to use this public access specifier because it is available throughout the project or in the another project also. So this is the public access specifier which is usable or which is accessible in the same project or in the different project also, or in the same class, in the derived class, like that. Suppose here we do not write anything, so it considers it private because by default its access specifier type is private. So it will consider it as private, and we cannot access this variable into our main method through our object or through our class. So here it is giving us the error. So by default its access level is private. So if we want to access it, we can set it as public. Next specifier we have private. Private members are accessible only within the same class where they are defined. This is the default if no access modifier is specified. So as I already told you, if you do not set up any specifier to that particular variable, then it will consider that it private. So the private functionality is that we can access it into the same class, not in the another class, not in the derived class, or not in the another project. So this is the private access specifier. Here we have the example of private specifier. We are considering it as private integer 25 value, and we are getting it through main method. So now let's see the private access specifier. Here we can initialize another variable with integer value. Can put some value here like 6. Okay, where we have the value, but we cannot access this private into our main method at this access level is in the same class. We can only access into in the same specific class. So if we want to access it, we can create some another method for this one. Number. Here we return this nuns. Okay, now we are accessing this private variable through our public method. We are returning this method. So if we want to use this one, so we can change this private specifier, and we have to call this method. So for calling any method, we have to do like this. So let's see the result of private access specifier. Here we have the result 556 for the private access specifier. As it is not accessible into another class, for this we created a method, different public method for this if we want to access it, as its access level into is in the same class. So this is a private access specifier. We can only use into the same class, not in the other class. Next specifier we have, that is protected. So protected members are accessible within the same class or in derived child classes, but not from other non-derived classes. So its access level of protected is that we can use it into a same class, or if we want to use that further, we can create a derived class. Through this we can use this protected variables. Like here we have the example of this one. Here we have parent child relationship, and in child it is behaving like a derived class, and we are inheriting the parent class over here. This inherit and parent child relationship or derived class, base class, we will discuss into our later videos. For now you can see here we are creating some methods like show email ID, and we are accessing this variable through this method. Suppose we want to use that protected keyword, then what we have to do, first we have to set some variable name like developers, and if we want to use that, because it's access level into the same class or in the derived class, so if we want to use that, we have to create some other class, child class. Here we have to inherit this parent class. So this is behaving like a parent class, and this is behaving like a child class. means derived class. Now for this we have to, if we want to use this, we can use it through method. Message. Here we can return this text. Now as you can see, we are getting this text value from parent class, not from directly into the child class. We are inheriting through the derived class, so it is easily accessible. We can like access it in the same class or into the derived class. So this is behaving like a derived class. Now let's print this one. We can protected access specifier. First we have to create the object of child class. Okay, now we can easily access it through the method calling. Okay, now let's see this one. Now it is accessing the developer's message from the protected access specifier. So here is the thing, we can access the protected specifier into the same class or into the derived class. Here we are accessing it through the derived class and we are displaying the result into our main method. Next specifier we have, that is internal. So internal members are accessible within the same assembly project but not from another assembly. So here is the thing, internal specifier we can only access into our same project or into our same assembly, not into the another assembly or another project. So this is the access level of internal. Here we are accessing it into our main method from the different class. Both are into our same project. Suppose here we want to access the internal. Double value we have 45. Okay, now we have to access this. So internal is accessible all over the project, into a same project, not into the different project. Internal access specifier. Okay, now let's see the output of this internal specifier. As we are getting the value of double keyword through internal specifier, so that is the main thing, like we can access it into our same class, into a derived class, or anywhere into the same project, but not in the another assembly or not in the another project. So this is the access level of internal access specifier. Next specifier we have, that is protected internal. Protected internal members are accessible from anywhere in the same assembly or from the derived class in other assemblies. So it is the access level of this protected internal. We can access this variable, method or class into our same project or in the other project of derived class or derived variable. We cannot directly use this one into the other project, but we can use that into a same project or same class or different class, or we can access it in the derived class from other project. So here we have the example of this protected internal. we are using the parent child relationship and inheriting parent class into the child class, so it is behaving like a derived class. So let's see this one. Protected internal email internal string type, then email id, programmers gmail.com. okay, now we have to access this one through the derived class, or we can access it into the same project. Suppose here we want to use into our parent child relationship and we are accessing my class into the child class. Here we can create some other method for this one. The email id, return email id. Next we have protected internal access specifier. Now we are accessing through the derived class, so we have to initialize this one with the method name. Now let's see this one. Not like this, because this is a method. Now we are getting the email id through parent child relationship with protected internal specifier, so it's accessing level into the same project or into the different project of derived class. Through this we can access it. So this is a protected internal, we are accessing it through the derived class. Next access specifier we have, that is private protected. So private protected members are accessible only within the same class or derived class inside the same assembly. They are not accessible from non-derived classes or from derived classes into another assembly. So private protected is that we can use that method variable into the same class or into the derived class into the same assembly, not in the other assembly, into the same project. Okay, and this is the accessible level of private protected. Here we have the example of this private protected. We are using a child parent relationship and we are using it through the derived class. So here we have the console.writeline message and we are displaying it through the calling of a method. Now let's see in the private protected float type, like float value, we can put some value 7.22. Yeah, so this is the syntax of float. Now if we want to inherit it, we can create some float method for this one. Number. Here we have the float value. Okay. Value, we are returning it through the method into the derived class. So we have a private protected access specifier, we are inheriting through the derived class. Now let's see the example of this one. Now we are getting the value of float as we are using private protected access specifier. So it is accessible into the same class or into the derived class, but in the same assembly, means same project, not in the other assembly or other project. So this is the accessing level of this private protected. Here we are accessing it through the derived class, means child class. Next we have check access specifier in other assembly. Now we are going to check which specifier is accessible into the other project or into the other assembly. How to test access modifiers with only two console applications. For this we have to create another console application into the same solution. We can create multiple console application into the same solution. So already we have one, we have to create another console application. In first console application we are using the main method, and we will call the all access specifier from the second project. For this we have to create a console application 2 project, where we define all these access specifiers, and we will check which specifier is accessible into our main project or not. Next we have console application 2 assembly 2 means and after creating the project second project we have to reference that project into our main project, like we are referencing or using that second project into our first project. For this we will set it add reference project reference and check that console application 1. And here we have the example of the console application 1, where we are accessing all the specifier which is accessible or which are not accessible. Now let's see these all specifier into our project. First we can delete this one, we do not require this. Now let's create another project. Here we can create another project, like right click on the solution, add new project. So select first one console application and click the next button and set the console application 2. Then click next. Now create the project into the same solution. As you can see, our second project was created. We have to reference this project into our main project, into our my first project. So for referring this second project into our main project, we have to right click on the onto our main project and then click the add, and here we have to reference the project reference. Here we can click this console app 2 if we want to use this second project into our main project, and click OK. So this is a console application 2 project, and here we have a main project. Into the second project, here we can create some specific class like all access specifiers which we want to use. First we can see about public access modifier. String message public specifier, public string we can set. Now check another one, This one we will set private, then protected, then internal. Next we have protected, internal. Next we have private, protected. So these are the all access specifiers. We can change variable name, private, protected, internal, protected, internal. Next we have private, protected. Now change its value. Here we have the all access specifier: public, private, protected, internal, protected, internal, private, protected. Now let's see which access specifiers is accessible into our main project, into our first project. And also we have to refer this second project into our main project if we want to use these specifier or these classes. So we have this derived class, and if we want to use this, we can inherit that all access specifiers class if we want to use that. Now we can inherit, first we have to create a method, public void display all specifiers. Console.writeLine public string we have. Next we have private, then we have protected, another one we have internal specifier, then protected, internal. Last we have private, protected specifier. Now here we have to change the value. These we can copy paste these files, these variable names, as some of them are not accessible, so that's why it is not accessing those values. Now here we have all access specifier which we are referring or which we are getting from our second project. So here is the first specifier, that is public. So public is like as I already told you, it is accessible all over the project or into the another project also, so it is accessible. And private is like it is only accessible into the same class, into the same assembly. And protected we have, so that is accessible into the same project or into the derived class. And internal we have, which will only work into the same assembly, or it is accessible level is into the same project only. We cannot access into the second project. Protected internal we have, so that will work into the same project or into the second project of derived class. Last we have private protected, so that is accessible into the same class or into the same project of same derived class, not into the other project. So these are not accessible. Private will not accessible, and internal is not accessible. Private protected is not accessible. Now if we want to display all these values, we have to call this method into our main method. First we have to create the object of a child class. Next we have to call this method. Display all specifier. Now it will display all accessible specifier into the terminal window. Suppose if we want to access all the specifier directly into our main method. Now let's see these examples also. And directly we can copy these and put it into here. If we want to use these, now as you can see, we are accessing all the specified directly without using the derived class into our main method. So it is only accessible the public. So public is accessible anywhere into our project, into our main project, into our another project also, and all other specifiers are not accessible directly into our main method without using derived class. So all these are not accessible. Now let's see the output of these specifiers which are accessible through the derived class. Now we have all the values. We are getting these values from the second project while referring the second project and accessing the variables from second project to our main project. So these three are accessible through the derived class. First one is public, which is all over available into our main project, and the next one we are accessing it through the protected or protected internal, which we are accessing through the derived class, not directly, and the last we are accessing directly into our main method, so that is public string. So here is the funda of all the access specifier. We see all access specifier which are accessible into the same project, into the same class, or into the derived class, or into the another project of a derived class. We see all the example of these access specifiers like public, private, protected, internal, protected, internal, private, protected. Next we have the summary. So let's recap what we learned today. First we will see access specifiers, the visibility and accessibility of classes, methods and other members within or same or different assemblies. So access specifier is that we can give the permission to that particular method variable that who can access it or who cannot access it. We can access it into the same class or into the derived class or into the different project or different assembly. So this is the access level or accessibility level for the user. So that is access specifier. We have types of access specifier, that is public. So public is accessible all over the project or into the another project also. And private specifier we have, that is accessible into the same class, not in the other class. And protected we have, that is accessible into the same class or into the derived class. Internal access specifier we have, that we can access into the same assembly, means same project, not in the other project. Protected internal specifier we have, that is accessible into the same assembly, same project or into the other project of derived class. So that is protected internal, which is accessible within the same assembly or from derived class or in other assemblies. And last we have, that is private protected. So that is accessible into the same class or in the derived class of same assembly, not in the other assembly. same assembly. So it is accessible within the same class or derived class in the same assembly. So these are the all topics of access specifiers with the types. So you can practice them into your Visual Studio. If you have any doubt related with these topics, you can mention them into the comment section. Now let's wind up today's session. Thanks. See you in the next video.